According to General Hospital spoilers, Drew Kane could score some scandalous images. Will Drew capture Sonny Corinthos and Ada Justine Turner's passion on video as they become closer? At this point, it appears that GH writers are attempting to couple Justine and Sonny. There is an unusual chemistry developing, which could lead to difficulties and jeopardize Ada Turner's career. Justine had the eye-opening experience of overhearing Drew extort Sonny, thus she is not on the congressman's side. Drew was unhappy with Ada Turner's lack of assistance in his assault case against Michael Corinthos, so he accused her of being on Sonny's payroll. Sonny told Justine that the payroll issue would not go away, and that she had made an enemy of Drew, but she insisted she was not afraid of him. This appears to be an ideal opportunity for Drew to hit back and leave Ada Turner reeling. Justine may be a touch overconfident about her abilities to handle Drew. Drew may be planning to blackmail Ada Turner next. It's easy to envision Drew hiring a private investigator and digging for dirt. Perhaps Drew could get lucky and catch Ada Turner in a compromising position. In any case, Justine appears to be preparing to let passion erupt with Sonny at some point, thus photos of them kissing their way into a hotel suite or something similar may be taken. Drew may end up with images indicating Justine is in bed with Sonny in more ways than one. Ada Turner had already rejected Sonny's gifts because they would have appeared inappropriate. If there is photographic or video evidence of Justine and Sonny's sizzling relationship, it will undoubtedly appear wrong. Ada Turner's career could tank if she gets too close to the mob boss, so Drew may blackmail her or just react by making some scandalous images public. We all know how vengeful Drew can be, so he might make Ada Turner regret her lack of support in the Michael drama that just ended. According to General Hospital teasers, Drew will become Justine's antagonist in the coming weeks. According to General Hospital spoilers, Drew Quartermaine appears to be preparing to make his long-planned transfer to Washington, D.C., leaving viewers wondering about Emily Scout Quartermaine's fate. With Drew's recent power plays and personal vendettas, there is suspicion that he may take Scout with him, despite her scant storyline participation. Her final major arc, fighting Drew's desire for a private school over her beloved public one, took place when Sam McCall was still alive, soon before her terrible death on Halloween 2024. Scout's narrative potential appears limited at her young age, raising the likelihood that she will accompany Drew in D.C., only to run into difficulty as a result of his inattentive, self-serving behavior. Could this be the beginning of a long and dramatic absence? Drew's departure puts Scout at a crossroads. Drew's political dreams are on the rise, and Scout's future depends on his next move. Her plot has been silent since that school argument with Sam, who supported her public school love before passing away. Scout's lack of depth may make her an easy target for Drew's departure, especially because he puts his profession over family relationships. With Alexis Davis circling for custody, can Drew whisk her away to avoid losing control, or will she be left to fend for herself? GH spoilers: Scout's potential exile raises concerns. Fans are concerned that if Scout travels to DC with Drew, her story would take a dark turn, formed by his self-absorbed negligence. Years from now, she may find herself entangled in difficulty, rebellion perhaps, or worse, similar to Drew's previous maneuvers and terrible parenting decisions with wily Corinthos. Scout's story may slow as she ages, making a long pause feasible. Will Drew's transfer cut her ties to Port Chuck? Or will a rescue scheme bring her back sooner? Will transferring her out of the only place she's ever known destabilize her life more in the aftermath of her mother's death? General Hospital spoilers. Can Scout escape Drew's neglectful shadow? Drew's possible DC. Scout's departure could pave the way for a comeback someday, bringing a new version of Scout to the table unlike any we've seen before. Drew is accustomed to strained family relationships as a result of his poor decisions. He has been keeping Scout separate from the rest of her family lately. Will moving her a couple states away make much of a difference? Given how bad this guy has been over the last year, it's difficult to believe he won't screw her up in some way. A few years of struggle could pave the way for a dramatic return, but for the time being, her tale appears to be stalled. Stay tuned to find out if Scout stays or goes, and keep checking back for more GH news and spoilers. Drew had been in a tailspin for days, his rage barely restrained, his intuition screaming that Sonny was hiding something major, something that might destroy people in Port Charles. The previous few months had chipped away at him piece by piece, with each betrayal digging deeper and each secret hanging harder on his chest. But nothing prepared him for the trail he came across late one steamy evening, while following Sonny's black SUV across town. Sonny was not on his way to the safe house, nor was he meeting with one of his lieutenants, as Drew had expected. Instead, he drove past the docks, winding through a remote location along the park's border where the lighting were hardly visible. Drew parked 2 blocks away and moved softly, his heart pounding with adrenaline. Something about Sonny's concealment gnawed at him, propelling him forward until he found himself crouching behind an overgrown hedge, camera phone gripped in one hand, waiting for the pieces to fall into place. Minutes thereafter, ADA Mariana Turner emerged, exiting a sleek, dark vehicle. Drew's eyes narrowed instantly. Turner wasn't just any attorney. She was the assistant district attorney in charge of several high-profile cases against crime families, including some involving Sonny's business rivals. Drew's heart raced just thinking about meeting Sonny at night. But what came next astonished him. Instead of a fast, uncomfortable exchange of information or a debate over a legal favor, Sonny strode straight up to Turner and pulled her close without hesitation. Drew blinked hard, unable to believe what he was seeing as Sonny's lips collided with hers, their bodies pressed closely together in a moment far too passionate to be dismissed as strategy. Drew froze, caught between amazement and vindication. Everything about this screamed trouble, not only for Sonny, but for everyone associated with him, including Carly, Michael, and Willow. His instincts intensified, and his hand moved on its own, raising his phone and taking shot after shot as Sonny and Turner increased their hug, fully ignorant of the prying eyes nearby. It was bizarre to see Sonny Corinthos, a guy who took pride in his control and measured every move like a chess master, throw caution to the wind. Drew's breaths were irregular, with each camera click catching a scandal that might destabilize not only Sonny's personal life, but also his enterprise. The images were damning. Sonny's hand knotted in Turner's hair, her fingers grabbing the lapel of his jacket, their shadows stretched together beneath the dim glow of the single streetlight. Drew had no idea how long he remained there before they parted ways, both looking around to ensure no one had noticed them. Turner caressed Sonny's cheek lovingly, her look sweet and troubled. There was more to this than a one-night secret. Drew's instincts told him that Sonny couldn't afford to have this kind of connection, especially because Turner's position allowed her to determine the outcome of every move he made in court. Drew remained hunched, gripping his phone like it was a weapon, as Sonny returned to his SUV and Turner disappeared into her automobile. The weight of what he'd captured fell heavily on him, combining power, betrayal, and leverage in ways that made his next step critical. The consequences of exposing Sonny would be catastrophic. Carly would be horrified, Michael would plummet, and Sonny's fragile connections might collapse overnight. Drew sat in silence in his flat, repeatedly replaying the photographs on his phone. Each photo reinforced the same reality. Sonny was entangled in something deadly that he couldn't explain away. But the dilemma gnawed at Drew's conscience. Should he utilize or bury the photos? The answer was not simple. The idea of confronting Sonny blazed in Drew's breast, but he knew better than to rush into a confrontation with someone like him. Sonny's reactions were unpredictable, his devotion was selective, and if Drew erred, the consequences could be permanent. Instead, he contemplated taking the evidence directly to Carly. The trouble was, Carly's relationship with Sonny was tricky. Even though she despised him, a part of her always supported him. Drew could already imagine her frosty gaze and clipped words if he stepped into the kitchen with sensational images of Sonny kissing another woman. But there was another aspect to this, the legal one. ADA Turner's tie to Sonny was not only personal, but also potentially illegal. If anyone discovered she was sexually linked with a man whose organization was continually under investigation, her entire career may collapse. That leverage represented power, which Drew wasn't sure he wanted but couldn't ignore. Drew kept a close eye on Sonny for several days. He noted the tiny changes, Sonny vanishing at strange hours, Turner abruptly recusing herself from some cases, and hushed talks between Sonny and Dex that ceased the moment Drew entered the room. The pieces were fitting together, painting a picture of a man urgently attempting to keep his worlds from merging. Then came the moment Drew had waited for. Sonny convened a special meeting at Pozzolo's, gathering his most trusted inner circle. Drew knew he would not be invited, which reaffirmed his suspicions. Instead he waited nearby, And when Dex went outside to take a phone call, Drew intercepted him. The tension between them was evident, with Dex's jaw hardening as Drew heard the name Ada Turner. "I don't know what you think you saw," Dex said, his voice low and sharp. "But if you're smart, you'll delete those pictures and forget about it." Drew took a step closer, his voice calm but hard. "Dex, you know me better than that. I do not forget. And I don't walk away when Sonny is endangering everyone I care about." For a moment, neither man blinked, the air dense with implicit threats. But Drew wasn't terrified anymore. He was aware that he now held the upper hand. Later that night, Drew confronted Sonny in the Metro Court's back corridor. Sonny's attitude changed instantaneously as he saw Drew's face, revealing the tempest behind his eyes before a single word was spoken. "Are you following me now?" Sonny inquired, his voice suspiciously calm. "Wouldn't have to if you weren't sneaking around with the ADA, Drew replied, his voice low but furious. "I have the images, Sonny. I know everything." The stillness stretched between them like a tension wire about to shatter. Sonny did not refute it. He did not even attempt. Instead, he moved forward, his jaw tightened, his words icy and purposeful. "You know nothing, Drew. Keep whatever you think you saw to yourself. For everyone's sake." But Drew refused to back down. "For everyone's sake? Or yours? Because from where I'm standing, Sonny, you've just given me leverage that I can't afford to ignore." For the first time, Sonny's eyes flickered, a flash of uneasiness hidden beneath layers of control. Drew realized then that he had hit a nerve, one that ran deeper than he had anticipated. At the days that followed, the tension at Port Charles grew unbearable. Drew proceeded cautiously, aware that every step he took may result in an explosive reaction. Sonny got more guarded, his inner circle tightening up, but the fractures were appearing. Turner ceased appearing in public with Sonny, but Drew knew their relationship wasn't over. The silent, fleeting glances at the courthouse told it all. Meanwhile, Carly began to suspect something was wrong. Drew noticed her studying him one afternoon at Kelly's, mistrust on her face. "You're hiding something," she whispered softly, looking into his eyes. He hesitated, torn between protecting her and telling the truth, which would crush her. In the end, he said nothing but squeezed her hand and walked away. But Carly wasn't foolish. She could sense the storm rising and wasn't going to wait for it to arrive. Drew had no idea that he wasn't the only one keeping eyes on Sonny. Someone else had witnessed the secret meeting with Ada Turner. Someone with their own goal who was willing to destroy everything to obtain what they desired. And when that person contacted Drew anonymously, promising knowledge that would shatter Sonny's world, Drew sensed he was on the verge of something far more serious than scandal. The images had sparked it. But now they were just one part of a convoluted web of secrets, betrayal and power struggles that threatened to engulf everyone. Sonny's empire was on shaky ground, Ada Turner's career was hanging by a thread, and Drew found himself holding the match that could set the entire thing on fire. And deep down, he knew he wasn't prepared for what happened when he eventually hit it. Drew had been restless for days, his every action clouded by anxiety he couldn't escape. The DC offer had landed in his lap like a grenade, promising power and authority, while also implying unseen hazards. He had been debating the decision for weeks, comparing what he stood to gain against what he may lose, but the clock continued to tick. Scout's life had been drawn into the storm he was unintentionally creating, so his future wasn't the only thing on the line. He desired stability for his daughter, a sense of safety and normalcy, but everything around him felt like quicksand. And every time he reached out to steady himself, someone else's secrets entangled him further in the maelstrom. Sam warned him. She had been nice at first, even patient, understanding that he needed to forge his own path. But patience was running out. She'd seen it before. Drew chasing something bigger than himself, telling himself it was for his family, only for everything to turn out far darker than planned. And now, with Scout stuck in the midst, her voice had become sharper. Her calls became longer, her texts more direct, and her warnings laced with fear disguised as rage. "You're not hearing me, Drew," she said the last time they talked. "This is not simply about a job or a relocation. DC comes with strings. They are being pulled by powerful individuals. People who don't care who gets injured." After she hung up, he paced the length of his penthouse, gazing out at the Port Charles skyline as a storm rumbled faintly in the distance. He didn't want to accept it, but she was correct. This was not straightforward. His past, his military ties, and even the subtle alliances he'd formed since coming to town were all significant. And this DC transaction was more than just a career change. It was an access point into a circle of influence where adversaries were disguised as smiles and devotion came at a cost. What Sam didn't realize, and no one else did, was that he'd previously met some of the characters who were pushing him toward Washington. A private luncheon weeks earlier, organized surreptitiously, had shown him how complicated this could become. Men and women dressed in calm power, with hushed voices and promises sweetened with subtle threats. They discussed opportunity, influence, and the kind of leverage Drew had hoped for since coming from Pentonville. But beneath the polish, Drew sensed danger. These guys did not ask, rather they arranged. And once you were inside, you couldn't walk out without bleeding. They weren't just watching him. That was the portion he couldn't shake. The reason his nights were restless and his temper was short. The day after that meeting, a black SUV remained outside Scout School for much longer than was reasonable. The next day, a plain envelope arrived at his door, containing only a single photograph of Scout walking hand in hand with Sam, blissfully unconscious of the shadows tightening around them. No words. No demands. This is just a reminder. They were letting him know that they could reach her at any time, from any place. Drew slapped the envelope into the shredder, his jaw stiff and his pulse pounding in his ears. He did not tell Sam. He did not inform anyone. That wasn't because he didn't trust them, but because he didn't want them to panic. Drew was unprepared for how Sam would oppose him on the move. Jason would also become involved in unexpected ways. Despite their terrible relationship, he knew his brother would not stand by if he believed Scout was in danger. But Jason's involvement would bring Sonny into the picture, and if Sonny started looking too closely, the entire arrangement could collapse before Drew had time to secure the safety net he was attempting to establish. So he remained silent, burying his dread between gritted teeth and convincing himself he was in charge. However, control was sliding faster than he wanted to admit. The chaos permeated everything, including his chats with Willow, his tense standoffs with Michael, and even the peaceful times at the Metro Court when he believed no one was watching. People were noticing. Brooklyn confronted him just the night before, her eyes keen and her words quiet but intentional. You believe you're hiding something, but you're not. Drew, something is coming for you. I don't know what it is, but if you drag Scout into this. She stopped herself, inhaling hard and softening her tone with genuine worry. Don't let this become another nightmare you can't wake up from. Her caution weighed heavily on him because it wasn't just speculation. She'd seen her fair share of deception and power games thanks to her links to the Quartermaines. And if she felt the walls closing in, it meant they were closer than he thought. Meanwhile, Sam was not giving up. She'd started exploring on her own, and Drew could tell from her tape chats that she'd discovered details he hadn't told her. That frightened him more than the actual threats. Sam could unintentionally paint a bigger target on her back by making the wrong call or engaging in the wrong conflict. She wanted him to back out and walk away before it was too late. But Drew could not. Not now. Not after he'd gotten this far. And not when the stakes had moved from personal ambition to something far more pressing: survival. Behind the scenes, he'd started putting his own pieces in play. Make quiet calls to old Navy SEAL connections. Cash transactions are made discreetly to a security agency in DC. He only used untraceable phone numbers once before burning them. If the individuals pulling the strings felt they had him cornered, he was about to show them wrong. But as he added layers of safety, his uneasiness became sharper and deeper. Scout didn't get any of it. To her, this was simply Dad being Dad, always busy and a little distracted. But on the nights she slept over, she began asking silent inquiries that went deeper than anything his enemies could throw at him. "Why are you always mad, Daddy?" she inquired one evening, her voice gentle as she sat cross-legged on the couch, coloring absent-mindedly while cartoons played in the background. He stopped, his palm clenching on the glass of water he was holding. "I'm not mad, Scout," he murmured, stooping down to her level and making his voice soothing despite the strain behind it. "I'm figuring out some grown-up stuff. That's it." Her slight frown remained for a beat before she nodded, satisfied. Moments like that devastated him, exposing the fact he refused to accept. His choices were no longer just about him. One incorrect move and she wouldn't just be dragged into turmoil, she might be eaten by it. By the end of the week, everything had boiled over. One of his trusted SEAL contacts sent him a coded text over his secure connection. He only spoke 2 words. It started. Later that night he saw the black SUV again. This time he did not keep quiet. He stepped onto the roadway and planted himself right in its path. The window slowly rolled down and the driver, a man Drew didn't recognize, smiled politely, almost mockingly. "Nice night," the man remarked casually. "Poor Charles looks stunning this time of year. You should appreciate it while you can." The SUV drove away, leaving Drew standing under the faint streetlight, his heart thumping against his ribs. It was no longer a warning. It was a countdown. For the first time since receiving the DC offer, Drew felt the truth sink him with devastating clarity. This wasn't simply about power or leverage, or even the ghosts from his past catching up with him. This was about survival. His, Sam's, and above all, Scout's. Every decision made from this point forward was important. One incorrect step and the other circling him would take action. But if he played his cards right and outmaneuvered them long enough, he might be able to seize power before the madness consumes them all. The trouble was that the game had already begun, and he wasn't the only one with pieces on the board.